Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some extremely spicy battles in the Open Master League featuring level 50 TYRANTRUM and level 50 AURORUS. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, level 50 TYRANTRUM and AURORUS is definitely not Pokemon that I would recommend for climbing, but this trainer pairs them up with a Groudon lead, manages to dodge any opposing Kyogres, and had some fun sets. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out TYRANTRUM and AURORUS in the Open Master League. Hopping into the first match, leading Groudon into Mewtwo. This is a pretty decent matchup for Groudon. I was going to say you do of course have to be mindful of a potential Ice Beam, but the opponent does not even build up to it, just settling for the Psystrike. Psystrike is survivable. Groudon now firing off the Precipice Blades. Precipice Blades will be shielded. We see a pivot into TYRANTRUM. Mewtwo gonna farm up energy and send in Lugia. They did not check TYRANTRUM's fast move, and these rock throws are beginning to add up. Meteor Beam will be shielded by the Lugia. Lugia now in a bit of an uncomfortable situation as it's losing health rapidly. Lugia fires off the Sky Attack. Sky Attack plus a Dragon Tail will KO TYRANTRUM, but now the opponent has given up every single shield they had, and it's time for AURORUS to enter the field. AURORUS, due to the rock typing, will be resisting Aeroblast, but Aeroblast is an extremely strong move. AURORUS farming up, going for the Meteor Beam here, wanting to get the KO and boost up future attacks. In comes Mewtwo. Mewtwo banked energy, and they're going to fire off a Psystrike and grab the first shield from AURORUS. AURORUS continuing to farm, making it to the Meteor Beam. Is this going to be enough to KO? Yes, it is. Goodbye, Mewtwo. In the back, it's Yveltal, and the opponent is about to get swept. AURORUS making it to the double boosted Meteor Beam. Get that Yveltal out of here. And that's a good game. Picking up a Nightmare lead in the next match, Groudon into Dragonite. We see a pivot into TYRANTRUM, and the opponent is going to respond with Melmetal. Definitely needed to bait out the Melmetal to free up AURORUS in the endgame, but man, this is a brutal matchup for TYRANTRUM. TYRANTRUM lands the crunch, does get the defense drop here, but Melmetal will fire off the superpower, and that deals massive damage to the TYRANTRUM. TYRANTRUM is going to let the second move through. Melmetal goes for the Rock Slide, and that will be enough to KO. Groudon can get a ton of energy here, but the issue is that energy is completely useless going up against Dragonite. So Groudon continuing to farm. Groudon honestly might be able to commit to the Mudshot farm down here, considering Melmetal keeps lowering their defense with superpower. Groudon gets the full farm down, looking to pivot into AURORUS, and the Dragonite is staying in. This is really good news. Firing off the Weather Ball, this is double super effective damage. Dragonite has to shield. Continuing to farm with the AURORUS. Superpower would probably just straight up one-shot, so we will see the shield. They go for that Dragon Claw bait, and in the back, they have Mewtwo. No baits here. AURORUS going for the Meteor Beam. That connects, dealing sizable damage to the Mewtwo. AURORUS committing the shield, as a Psystrike is probably going to KO. AURORUS making it to the boosted Weather Ball here. Weather Ball should just about KO. Opponent commits the shield. We see the combo play into the Groudon. Groudon firing off the Precipice Blades. Goodbye, Mewtwo. In comes Dragonite, but Dragonite has taken a lot of damage throughout the match. This Precipice Blades is going to hurt. That puts it very close to Fire Punch range. Dragonite forced to throw energy. This is going to be close. Can Dragonite make a move before AURORUS gets the farm down? In comes AURORUS, gets the farm down, and secures the win. We've got a mirror lead in the next match, Groudon versus Groudon. Opponent does have best buddy Groudon, so they're comfortably going to be winning every CMP here. Going straight for the Precipice Blades, losing CMP due to the best buddy boost and committing the shield just to get baited with a Fire Punch. Opponent's bait is successful, and that is going to make things difficult. Opponent shields up the Precipice Blades. They now have an energy head start, and they're at a Precipice Blades. We're going to see the no shield, but this is going to hurt. Precipice Blades, massive damage into the Groudon. Returning fire with another Precipice Blades here. Gotta hope the opponent lets it through, and they do. We see a switch into AURORUS. Safe switching an Ice and Rock type Pokemon is a risk, but in this case, the opponent does not have a hard check to it, as they're going to send in Mamoswine. Mamoswine down energy, not going to appreciate the neutral Meteor Beam. Opponent commits the shield, but all that does is just make the next Meteor Beam stronger. They need a high horsepower 2 KO here, and they go straight for it. Great use of the final shield. AURORUS makes it to the boosted Meteor Beam. Is this going to be enough to KO the Mamoswine? Yes, it is. What do they have? They send in Groudon. They're weak. In the back, it's Lugia. I want to see this double boosted Meteor Beam onto the Lugia. Lugia, one of the bulkiest Pokemon in the Master League, taking massive damage. In comes Tyrantrum, and the opponent concedes a match. Met with the familiar lead in the next match, Groudon into Mewtwo. Going to be staying in this matchup. Opponent farms up and plays to the CMP tie. This is enough for the Ice Beam, and the opponent goes straight for it. That is a very massive shield. Now going to fire off the Precipice Blades. Precipice Blades will be no-shielded, and it's a simultaneous switch. Rock Throw Tyrantrum into Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh in an incredibly uncomfortable position. Crunch will be no-shielded. Ho-Oh, unless they're running Earthquake, which almost no one does, is going to be walled here, and they're forced to settle for the Brave Bird. In the back is Dialga, and Dialga up a shield is honestly problematic here. Going to send in the Groudon, but Groudon is down a shield and down energy. Groudon trying to bait with the Fire Punch, losing CMP to the Dialga. Thankfully, it is just going to be the Iron Head. Going for the Fire Punch here. Opponent is going to have to respect this with a shield, and they do. We now see a switch into AURORUS. AURORUS farming up and firing off the Weather Ball. Weather Ball not going to KO, but will be able to significantly outpace the Dialga. We're going to need to see a second Weather Ball to KO, but not before Dialga makes the Iron Head. That would be double super effective damage, so we will see a shield from the AURORUS. AURORUS may have lagged a little bit there, actually. I'm not sure if AURORUS missed out on any turns of energy. AURORUS farming up, but gets outpaced, and unfortunately, I think the Groudon is just too low. In comes the Groudon. Groudon makes the Fire Punch, but the issue is the Mewtwo is still alive in the back. In comes the Mewtwo. It's a race. Mewtwo gets the Psycho Cut down, and that's game over. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Groudon into Zacian. The two rock types in the back would get absolutely shredded by close combat, so definitely nice to catch the Zacian on the lead. Groudon farming up and going straight for the Precipice Blades. Precipice Blades able to connect, dealing massive damage to the Zacian. Zacian is at the back-to-back close combats if they're running it, and they are. They go for close combat number 1, followed by close combat number 2. Groudon perfectly content to give up a shield, commit to the farm down, but the opponent will not let that happen. They're going to save switch into Giratina Origin, which will be answered by AURORUS. AURORUS, of course, has the type advantage in this matchup, but the massive difference in CP means that this is actually a bit of an uncomfortable situation for the AURORUS. AURORUS firing off the Weather Ball. We see the no-shield by the Giratina, going for another Weather Ball and losing CMP to the Giratina. Giratina goes for the Ominous Wind. Ominous Wind barely will not KO, and AURORUS will get to make its second charge move. Weather Ball will be shielded as Giratina farms down. In comes Rock Throw Tyrantrum. Tyrantrum looking to try and farm down the Giratina here. Giratina is that enough for the Shadow Ball. We see the shield. It is the Shadow Ball in the back. It's a Heatran, and Heatran will be taking neutral damage from the Rock Throws here. Crunch connects. We see the attack drop as well. Heatran farming up, and they make it to the Stone Edge. Stone Edge will hit for some heavy neutral damage, and then do we see a potential switch into the Groudon? Yes, we do. Groudon looking for the Mud Shot down and gets it. Groudon leaving with so much energy. In comes Giratina, going for the Fire Punch. I don't think it's quite Fire Punch range. Opponent commits the shield, and now to ensure the KO, going for the Precipice Blades. Precipice Blades gets rid of the Giratina. All that's left is the Zacian in the back, and it runs out of HP. Picking up a tricky lead in the next match, Groudon into Palkia. Now, Palkia can hit this entire team for super effective damage, so definitely not a fun Pokemon to see. Aqua Tail, Groudon can tank it, but it's still going to hit for quite a lot of damage. No baits here, going to full send the Precipice Blades. This will almost one-shot. Opponent commits the shield. They save switch into Ursaluna, and this is probably the absolute last thing Ursaluna expected in the counter swap, as in comes Master League AURORUS. Firing off the Weather Ball, that's going to connect. Ursaluna farming up energy, and we will see a shield from the AURORUS. Ursaluna full sends the high horsepower, and now AURORUS doing exactly what it needs to, over farming quite a bit, and actually going for the resistant Meteor Beam here. Meteor Beam is going to KO, and AURORUS is now boosted. AURORUS, considering the low CP, definitely does need some help in terms of a boost. AURORUS continuing to farm. We see the no shield. Can AURORUS tank the Aqua Tail here? Aqua Tail connects. AURORUS able to hang on and make it to the boosted Meteor Beam, putting pressure onto the Palkia. Meteor Beam gets the KO. In the back, it's Groudon, and Groudon gets the farm down. In comes TYRANTRUM. It's now running Dragon Tail, and that is quite advantageous for this matchup, as Dragon Tail at the very least will hit for neutral. Continuing to farm up with TYRANTRUM, going for the Crunch. This will be grabbing the final shield from the opponent, hoping for a defense drop. Crunch does not get the defense drop. It all comes down to this. Are they baiting? Calls the bait. It's the Precipice Blades, and that's game over. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Groudon into Dialga. Definitely want to see Dialga on the lead with this team, and the Dialga is staying in. Groudon farming up and going straight for the Precipice Blades. This will one-shot if they let it through, and the opponent calls the bait. So this game is basically probably just over, because they just immediately lose their Dialga. In comes Togekiss, going to fire off the Fire Punch, sending in TYRANTRUM in the back. It is Garchomp, so things are looking really good for a potential AURORUS sweep. But the issue is that Garchomp does have Sand Tomb, and Sand Tomb will hit for super effective damage and chip away at the AURORUS' HP. We see a shield from the Garchomp. Garchomp looking for the farm down, and unfortunately TYRANTRUM is not able to make a move. In comes the Groudon, just forcing them to throw energy. Garchomp just continuing to Sand Tomb here. They're going for another Sand Tomb. This will come very close to KOing. Can Groudon hang on? Groudon is able to survive. In comes AURORUS, but AURORUS will be met with loaded energy from the Garchomp, and it's yet another Sand Tomb. That is definitely not ideal. AURORUS able to make it to the Weather Ball, hitting for double super effective damage. We see the final shield come up from the Garchomp. Garchomp firing off another Sand Tomb. AURORUS choosing to let this through, as the Togekiss does have energy. In comes the Togekiss, and they're going to fire off a charge move. Probably going to be the Ancient Power. Do we see the boost? Thankfully, we do not. AURORUS makes the back-to-back charge moves. Is this going to be enough to win the game? Weather Ball takes down Togekiss, and Weather Ball will be enough here. In comes the Garchomp. They get KO'd, and that's game over. Neutral lead in the next match, leading Groudon into another Mewtwo, but this time it is the Shadow Mewtwo. Shadow Mewtwo has a tremendous damage output, but will just about be one-shot by Precipice Blades. Side Strike connects, that does so much damage, and Groudon, again, not going for the bait, going for the Precipice Blades, and grabbing a shield from the opponent. In comes TYRANTRUM. Looks like TYRANTRUM has switched back to Dragon Tail here, as Mewtwo will grab a shield with the Side Strike. TYRANTRUM continuing to farm, able to outpace the Mewtwo and make it to the Crunch. Crunch into the Mewtwo, will grab the final shield. At this point, you just let TYRANTRUM go and try and sweep with AURORUS. Side Strike is going to KO. In comes AURORUS. AURORUS is going to have to commit the shield, as Shadow Side Strike is just devastatingly effective. And now we're going to see an overfarm from the AURORUS. AURORUS going for the Meteor Beam. Opponent makes a very nice catch, catching the Meteor Beam onto Dialga. AURORUS now boosted, but in an uncomfortable position here, as this boosted Weather Ball is not going to be enough to KO, and Iron Head is going to be lethal. So we see a switch into the Groudon that resets the boost, but importantly, it catches the Iron Head. Back in comes AURORUS. AURORUS looking to overfarm as much as possible. There has to be a flyer in the back for there to be any chance. Weather Ball is going to KO in the back. It's a Shadow Ho-Oh. Is this actually winnable? Going for the Meteor Beam. It's double super effective damage, KOing the Ho-Oh. In comes the Mewtwo. Mewtwo gets the Psycho Cut down, and that's game over. Dream lead in the final match, Groudon into Excadrill. Opponent save switches into Zacian, but this is honestly a bit uncomfortable here, as the backline does not want to see Zacian whatsoever. Groudon goes for the Precipice Blades, that deals massive damage, and now we see a switch into TYRANTRUM. The no shield from TYRANTRUM, play rough, massive damage. TYRANTRUM able to hang on and get the Dragon Tail farm down. I believe TYRANTRUM left with a Crunch as well, so we'll be able to get some chip damage when the opponent sends back in the Excadrill. Crunch is going to deal some solid chip. We see the no shield from the Excadrill. And now going to need to wait the timer here. Sends in the Groudon right away. And unfortunately, the opponent can switch, but Groudon cannot. Groudon going for the Fire Punch here, trying to stall the switch timer. That's no shielded by the opponent, and it turns out to be a CMP tie. Groudon will be able to no shield here, and then in comes AURORUS. Powder Snow hitting for double super effective damage and going for the Weather Ball. Weather Ball puts a lot of pressure onto the Dragonite. Opponent lets it go. They're trying to sweep with Excadrill, but Exca is going to be outpaced here. AURORUS on the 4 cycle as Weather Ball will grab a shield. Opponent over farming. They could have thrown a couple extra mud shots there. I like the decision to let the AURORUS go and just trust in the Groudon, as Groudon will be able to inflict big damage with the Fire Punch, and the Exca is just running out of HP here. Exca able to grab the first shield from the Groudon with the Drill Run, but it's just too little too late. They can even grab the second shield, but Groudon now has the Fire Punch. Drill Run shielded up, and Groudon will be able to secure the victory with the Fire Punch onto the Excadrill, and that is a good game. All in all, it was very fun getting to see level 50 AURORUS and TYRANTRUM in the Master League. As I mentioned at the start, this is absolutely not a team I would recommend for climbing. TYRANTRUM, I believe, has 0 meta wins in the entire Open Master League. AURORUS has a couple, but still, the massive difference in terms of stat product between AURORUS and the rest of the Master League definitely leaves it as a pick more for fun than for climbing. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.